Hello and welcome to another edition of DIY, Indie Musicians Talking Music. I'm talking with Scott from the Holy Coves today. Hey, Scott, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm good, thanks.
Scott is nice to know. Scott is coming to me from the I guess the northwestern tip of the UK, from northern Wales. And you said you're on an island, Scott, is that right?
Yeah, I mean North Wales. We're in the country of Wales. Obviously, the United Kingdom. I live on the Holy Island, which is the island off an island of Anglesey, in North Wales. That's a beautiful place. I live by the beach in a place called Trada Bay. It's lovely here.
And I'm assuming that the sort of sacred aspects of your home is partly to explain the name of the band, the Holy Coves. Yeah, and also your upcoming record, which is going to drop very soon on October the 17th, which is Bards and Druids.
Druids and Bards.
Druids and Bards. I knew I'd get that wrong. I had a 50-50 chance, and God, always the same way.
You could put it the opposite way around, because it still would mean the same thing. It's Druids and Bards is kind of me connecting to the roots of my family, the Welsh side of my family, which are all from Llandonna, which is on the Isle of Anglesey. So kind of when I delved into the history of my family and kind of, doing a lot of soul searching writing this album, it was a tough record to write. It's very personal to me.
Right.
But yeah, it was a good experience. It taught me a lot about things I didn't know. My great grandfather was a Welsh bard. He won a chair at the Steddfod. So I got to kind of connect to the roots of my family, got to find out some amazing stories. And I always grew up with Welsh fable tales of druids and bards and witches and stuff in Llandonna. So kind of there's a lot of fable there, there's a lot of reality there as well, because of my family. It's etched in them too. But it was a really good experience.
Oh, wonderful. And it's interesting, what was the driving force with basically coming out with another Holy Coves record after that gap of I guess it'll be 12 years, right? From one iteration to the next.
Yeah, it's kind of, I think it's like 10 years. It's 10 years. Yeah. I did have a crack at writing the follow-up record to Peruvian Mistake, which was out in 2012. And I had a go at that, and kind of, 5 years later, and just wasn't there. I wasn't happy with the production, wasn't happy with how it was going to be recorded. Hadn't figured it out yet. I had an idea and had an inkling of what I was writing, but the stuff I was writing was really heavy, really personal to me. So this took me a lot longer to write. It wasn't an easy record to write. I had to delve into some things from my past. I had to delve into things I was seeing, around me. It's not just about me. This record I wrote for everyone who's experienced any kind of darkness in their life, anything that, and I'm noticing a lot of people are and have experienced those things. I fell into addiction heavy 5 years ago. So coming out of that, I woke up to a lot of things, done a lot of work on myself, a lot of self-discovery. And then, this album came, and it kind of just came organically, but it was difficult to write. But again, there was light, there was from the darkness, just more light and light and light. It just kept coming. And this album is about stepping out of the darkness and into the light.
Right. No, it's first off, I'm really happy to hear that you found a way out of your problems, and it's doubly nice that it was music that played a large role in that.
Yeah, family and friends,
the creativity that comes from it, and the belief in yourself too.
Yeah, well, a lot of factors. Family, friends, everything around me. I mean, nature. Just reconnecting, coming out of addiction, kind of like you're in this bubble where you kind of suppressed, and you kind of, you're not connected to anything. It's kind of like, it's strange to understand until you kind of come out of it. And then it hits you like a wall, just coming at you daily kind of thing. And that can be, like the height of anxiety, can be quite overwhelming. So and to come back to reconnect and creativity and get reconnecting with all the amazing musicians I've worked with. Got to work with some amazing musicians that I've always wanted to work with since I was a teenager on this record. So you've got John Lawrence from Gorky Psychotic Monkeys. You've got Spike T. Smith, the famous drummer from Anglesey. And then you've got Jason Hughes, the nostalgia of he played the guitar on the Lizzie's and It's Mon record, the first record we made. And then Oz Ginsberg, We Are Animal, the Heights. I mean, the list goes on with him. He's an amazing musician all around. And then Eric Wilford, a fellow American, Texan producer. He did the Black Angels, one of my favorite bands. He actually mixed this record. So, it was nice to reconnect because I made the first 2 records with David Wrench, and he was, he's like one of the biggest producers in the world at the moment. And in the UK, probably the biggest. He's just gone massive, and obviously, spent a lot of time writing, recording with him, and learning the art of production, and recording, and just even just about being a human being, because he was one of the best human beings I've met in my whole entire life. So he taught me. I call him like the High Druid. He's got this amazing sort of white hair, and he's just amazing person. So he taught me a lot. And then obviously reconnecting with them people, that's what saved me. That's the creativity part comes out with that too, and also allowing people enough space on this record to be fully creative. Like say the Spike the drummer comes in. I'm not like rigid and say play this. I have an idea, and we talk references, and then it's kind of like we went for it. 5 days, we got all the live stuff done, the whole of the record. Wow. And it was all complete creativity. Every single person on that record who played, always played bits of guitar, bits of synths, bits of everything. Myself with the guitars and other things, and the vocals, and then Spike the drums, Jason on the bass. It's kind of like and then John Lawrence, obviously, engineering, co-producing with me, and then also play some guitar on it too. So it's kind of like everyone had their creative freedom on it, and this is why this album to me is so special, because it just comes alive and you can hear it. It's just and everyone kind of commented on that how happy they were to just have this creative freedom, that we all still were working for each other, but we weren't competing against each other. And it's a completely new way of working for me as well. I mean, I've always believed in the live stuff. I don't do any of the auto-tune or stuff like that, because I mean stuff like that in the past I've heard on records, and I just didn't like it. It just doesn't work for me. We do everything real. It's right, and I learned that from David Wrench. So John Lawrence was co-producer on this with me from Gorky Psychotic Monkey. I mean, all have become very good friends of mine.
Yeah, no, it's really fantastic that it worked out that way. Because it's not always the case that happens.
No.
More, but it surprises me because I was just watching this interview with Tony Levin, who has been around the industry forever, great session player, and he said that what he found interesting from producer to producers is the best ones were those who basically hired you because they liked what you did, and then they let you do it.
Well, that's exactly what I did. That's exactly why I wanted to work with people. I didn't want them to come in and play what I wanted them to play. I wanted them to come in and create their magic. So it comes alive.
He said it was interesting. It was very difficult sometime as a musician to figure it out.
It was hard. It was hard.
You expect to be directed. And sometimes they want to be, you need to be directed.
Well, but
it's wonderful when everyone comes in and the creativity clicks and it doesn't work against itself.
Yeah,
which will happen sometimes too. Well, then they call it what do they call it? Conflicting egos, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've been around a lot of egos, in life, not just music, but yeah, it wasn't easy, but it was also easy at the same time, if that makes sense. There was points of it where it was just like flowing, but then there's points of where as a co-producer, and John's job as a co-producer as well as me. That is our job, to direct things at certain points.
Yeah.
There is a point where we do that. There's references, there's things the conversations we have. So yeah, that's something that we're very good at. We've got a lot more experience doing that now, and I've worked with John for the last 5 years. I did my Scars solo EP, which was kind of like an EP for this record, which was 5 years ago, and it was just about me kind of figuring this out. And so I've been working with John since then, and he was very good at what you've just said then, that kind of the point of direction when it's needed.
Yeah.
So he
Well,
kept
I think it's like being a good coach.
yeah.
It's very much the same thing. You have to get out of the way sometimes and let people do their thing.
Yeah, of course, of course. But
Yeah.
there's times of it where I have to kind of be like, well, this is what I want, and this is there
Mhm.
are decisions that have to be made, critical decisions.
Yeah.
So there are moments of that where it becomes difficult, but we all got it, and everyone nailed their part, and it was a fantastic experience, and yeah, you can hear it on the record. You hear every single one of those musicians bringing something to the table, which is magic.
Yeah.
It's hence this, druids and bards, the wizards, the storytellers. There's magic on this record.
Yeah, and obviously the stars aligned, right?
Yeah, they definitely did. They definitely did, and it just seems to sort of be the more I'm listening to the record now, because I haven't listened to it for a while, and then kind of the last week, because I know it's coming out, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm
Hmm.
gonna listen to this. Just had a new car where um I've got obviously a new stereo, and kind of like, oh, I'm like, this is how I live. This is my favorite way of listening to music. Anyway, I do a lot of the listening to mixes and stuff, in my car. So I've been listening to that in the last few days, and I'm like, I'm also comparing, to kind of like production, what's out at the moment, some stuff from the past. Kind of got to know where you're at as well. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, this record is special, and special to me. And I've never been more happy with a record coming out than I am with this record
Excellent. Well,
at
I
this
hope.
point.
Yeah. Well, I hope that it launches successfully. Then. So you were saying you're planning a launch party when it comes out as well. Is that
Well,
correct?
yeah, the launch party is literally just friends, family,
Yeah.
people who are helping me with the label, the team, music friends, good friends, people I've met along the way over the years, people from the old records, the old band members, anyone that, because each project I work with different people, because Holy
Right.
Coves is my baby. So, I've everyone will be there, and it's something I've not really done. Is even when the past records come out, I never really celebrated them. So it's something I found of also coming out of addiction, because it felt like I was always celebrating all the time, if that makes sense. So I'm like, no, this is something that deserves to be celebrated, and it needs to be toasted. So we're going to do it properly, and it's that great to catch up with everyone else that I've made those records with in the past, the people I made working with now, the people who, there's some fans who are coming as well, some locals, who have supported us and followed us, and it's going to be a good night. I'm really looking forward to it.
Good. No, it sounds fantastic, and it'll be a great celebration for all the hard work, right? As
Yeah,
much as
it
anything else,
deserves it.
it'll be a wrap party.
It will be. It will be a celebration that's deserved. In Shada Bay,
Yeah.
where we live by the beach in this beautiful location, where I live now, and yeah, I mean, it's a great place for the creative mind as well, by the beach. Just to get out, and we're surrounded by the Snowdonia Mountains. Hence, me when I started up um, my DIY label, which is
Hmm.
called the Wither Records, which is the Welsh name for Snowdonia, which is grave in Welsh.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, it's we're so if you kind of are in the bay where I live, you can see
Mhm.
the surrounding mountains of the Snowdonia Mountains, the Wither, and yeah, so hence the name Wither Records, and yeah, so the record will actually come out on CD. It'll
Oh,
come
nice.
vinyl. It comes out digitally on the 14th of October, and
Right.
then the pre-sale for the vinyl will go up. CDs will go on sale. Um, some T-shirts and some sort of packs
Yeah.
and the stuff that we've all decided we're going to do. And again, this is all new to me, because about 8 years ago, my manager passed away, and he was my
Mm,
best friend, St John. And so I'm kind of had to learn to manage myself, and kind of
right.
obviously I'm working with Alec from Beast PR and a few other people that are really like bringing something to the table and helping. So we're building a good team. We're building something that where we're thinking of the future. We're thinking long term. I will be following this record up next year with another record, and yeah, I want to keep the momentum going. I want to be consistent. I've already written the follow up record. I finished that earlier this year, so I'm kind of like in the zone. I'm ready. Going to
No,
obviously
good.
some
And
some
are
more.
you planning on taking things on the road? Do
Yeah,
you plan to play live or?
we're going to be playing live again next year. We're going to be announcing some tour dates, festivals, everything. But yeah, that will all be announced probably by January time.
Okay. And I think you'd said before when we were speaking off stage that you're actually planning on actually having more of a band than just you and session players which has sort of been the case up to this point, right?
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean,
you've had a number of different iterations, but
yeah. I mean, it's always whenever I'm doing it, whoever I'm working with, it always feels like a band. So it's always a band.
yeah,
And but I am looking for someone. I have been looking for members the last few years when I decided I was coming back and I knew what I was doing. And and when I figured out the plan moving forward, so I wanted some members to come in that not just going to be here for this one record, that we can come in and we can do the next decade and write some music together, and and however long they last, it makes no difference to me, because I'd like them to be there for forever. But I also understand life and gets in the way sometimes, and kind of like I used to maybe fall into the trap of, if someone decided they didn't want to be around, they used to take it a bit personal. But I'm in that frame of mind now where I realize that life goes on, and Holy Coves goes on long as long as I want it to, and I wanted to continue making music. So that's helped me a lot. But yeah, I mean, I do have a new band, but again, that will be announced in January, of who will be coming on the road with me, who will be a part of the next tour, who will be making this follow-up record, which it's not really much to talk about all that really, because it's not even made, apart from the fact is that I know it's happened and I've written it. So I'm not going to do any promo on that today.
Okay, well, no, fair enough. Although I would say oftentimes I think the conception of something is half the job.
Yeah.
When you can conceive of something, it becomes a lot easier to actually go through with, right?
It's almost real, because at the end of the day, it's like, because I have finished writing the record, which is, and you think about how long the last record took me to write, and this was literally, a snippet of my life. It was so short, and also, as well as I felt I was kind of in the zone. So after the last record, I thought I was with the writing. I felt like I was on fire, kind of thing, with just songs coming out and just pouring out of me. And so I had half of the songs written from the tail end of what I was writing on the last record, and then I kind of made sense of it and wrote 4 new songs, which kind of like tied it into the record. I've even finished the titles. The title, I know what the album's called. It's done. It's written. It will be recorded. So it's kind of like that's where I need to be at to make a record. So if you understand why I maybe haven't made a record before that in such a long time, it's because of that reason.
Yeah. No. Listen, it can make perfect sense. Although I find it interesting as well, as new songs come up, how much of a pressure and an effect they'll have on it. And whether it'll go from 10 songs to 11, or maybe something gets pulled out and changed. But
it's 9. It's 9. It's 9, like the rest one, like the last record. It's 9. The power of 9. The next album's 9, and there are no weak songs on this record or the next one. Yeah. Because that's something I kind of like. I waited until sometimes I had maybe 10 that it was the wrong number, and maybe a few weak songs, some that didn't fit into the story, didn't think it fit into what I was trying to say. So yeah, I mean these are kind of like, when I finish a record, that's why sometimes I take a little bit longer as well, because I have to make sure that the songs are all exactly into the story of what I want to say. It's got to be, it's got to be where I'm completely happy with it. And I am. I'm really happy about this. I'm really happy about this new record for people to hear it on October the 14th, because it feels like, I recorded it last summer, so it's kind of like it got finished. We finished with a mixing. It got mixed over in Texas by Eric Woodford, and in January of this year. So it's kind of like I've been kind of over this record for a while, but I'm excited for people to hear it.
So it's interesting. You said that a lot part of your creative process is about conceiving something in its totality, and obviously this current record, getting back to it, is all about exploring your past. Would that be a fair way of looking at it? Or
about the future,
rediscovering your roots?
It's rediscovering everything, from the roots to like almost like a timeline of my life, but also now and also the future. It's about everyone. I wrote this record for everyone. It wasn't just about me. It's about connecting to everyone. And if anyone's ever been in the place that I've been in, anywhere near, and I mean, if anyone has ever struggled, they will instantly connect to this record. You will know about what I'm saying instantly.
Yeah. And do you find that something that you looked for in musicians that you appreciate? And like, were you someone in terms of records who was drawn to the concept album, let's say, versus just a collection of songs?
Yeah, it's about the album for me. I mean, it's always been about writing records for me. But I
Yeah,
also enjoy, because the concept of albums changed slightly now. So say, Spotify and iTunes has changed that narrative, hasn't it? So
yeah.
kind of, but I do also appreciate good songs as well. A
Hmm.
hit's a hit. A great song is a great song. It's kind of like so yeah. I suppose I've changed as well as I've got older.
Yeah.
Because I understand as well as not everyone writes albums like that, and I've only ever been about writing albums. I write records, I write albums. I
Yeah.
don't write songs, but again, I'm also trying to write really good songs. So something
Hmm.
has changed in that as well. It's kind of, you know, there's a massive 90s nostalgia on this record. There's 60s, 70s. There's so many influences. Like, I could be here forever. I mean, the references we use
Well,
for
that's
some of
what this
these
show is all about. So let's start in the 60s.
well, it's kind of like,
Let's say I'll give you one influence per decade.
well, there's
Okay.
kind of like there'd have to be more, because you're talking like there's stuff like where you could start with bands like the krautrock bands like sort of like Can,
Yeah.
and
And
there's elements of that with the groove and the drums, and there's this like there's Floyd, there's the Eagles,
yeah.
there's there's to the Stones, there's the
Hmm.
Beatles, and then there's Fleetwood Mac, and then you've got all these great bands in the 90s. So many to mention. I mean, I'm a huge Pumpkins fan,
Okay. Hmm.
massive Smashing Pumpkins fan. Um, the earlier stuff. It's not like I'm not a fan of them now. It's just kind of like the early stuff grabbed me, when I was
Yeah.
younger, and influenced me massively.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, so the Siamese Dream, Melancholy era. It's just kind of like Into a Door, that type of thing, and all that stuff. Kind of like
Right.
Into Machina kind of thing. It's for me. It's like that whole Pumpkins is enough for me. I don't need any more for the rest of my life.
Hmm.
Um, I'm thankful if they want to keep writing, make great music, but it's kind of like nothing has really grabbed me like that era.
Yeah.
And then you've got all the grunge bands. You've got, I mean, the '90s bands. You've got Cast. You've got, I mean, I get asked a lot about the Oasis sort of stuff, and I was more of a fan of the Verve, if I'm honest. And if I'm honest as well, it's like never really sort of like if I'm looking at my biggest influences, it was never really bands like that.
Yeah.
Spiritualized, one of my favorite biggest influences, biggest band for me is Spiritualized. Like if you know that music, then you understand maybe where the Verve kind of is similar, but for me, Spiritualized is like and then you've got. It's just that Spiritualized is just like that, the mecca of all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then you've got bands like from like I said, like Cast. I mean, I could name indie bands from the '90s. We could be here all night. It's just that it's got that too. So it's kind of like and then music now. Black Angels, Black Rebel Motorcycle Club, one of my biggest influences, which also come from the '90s as well. So kind of, or was it the O's? I'm not too sure. I think I think it was 2000. But the Black Angels are a big influence on me. Hence me working with Eric Wilford. Yeah, and Black Rebel Motorcycle Club. I mean, massive influence on me. Nick Cave and the Black
Yeah.
Seeds, Nick Cave, anything but of that. I could be here forever. I mean, Nick
Yeah.
Cave influenced me massively over the last 5 years,
Yeah.
whereas maybe not so much earlier on. But
Yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah,
it's
no,
still
it's funny when I
what else?
was first listening to your stuff, the two things that came to mind, because I'll always do like quick categorizations that I then will sometimes change, but just my first impression. And there were really two things. There's like a really strong, it's that sort of what I'd class as almost Celtic rock.
Yeah,
And
I like
it's
that.
just but that's going back to the 70s. You know what I mean? You
Yeah, of
can
course.
trace it to all kinds of different acts.
It's
But
roots, isn't it?
it's
It's roots, really.
hard, but there's a certain guitar sound, and just a certain production. Like there's a certain, I don't know, space somewhere
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
thing that's
yeah,
different than, let's say, a band from England, and you notice it right away.
yeah.
The other thing was like an indie power trio. I thought of like Big Star for some reason. They just
Yeah,
and they're late 70s, weren't they?
yeah.
Early 80s. But yeah, it had this very indie feel, but I can hear all of your influences as well.
Yeah,
Definitely, you know.
oh, that's good. That's good. I mean,
Yeah,
definitely everything that you've just said is you know is right.
yeah.
Is
It's
right.
very power chords a lot, you know, but with that twist, right?
Yeah, I mean, you know, what
Lyricism, a
octaves?
little sort of
What,
alternative feel to it. It's not so heavily blues rock based, I guess is probably.
no, it's got a bit of everything. To kind of
Yeah.
like, you know, because it's just, and I don't necessarily try to make it sound like any one of them. It's just in me, you know. It's kind of like
Yeah,
all
well,
those rhythms and
and
stuff.
that's the best way. You know,
Yeah,
it's. I think with myself, it's also the same thing,
yeah,
in the sense like I was, for whatever reason, you know, I stumbled on that Tony Levin thing that I'm listening to, and it was fascinating because he was talking about the band, the King Crimson, where they had the three drummers.
yeah.
I don't know if you saw. Did you see any of that iteration of King Crimson?
I've seen something online on my feed. Not on, I think it was
Yeah,
on.
you should check it out. It's like I
Yeah,
think they're playing like Starless or something like that,
yeah.
and it's just unbelievable with the three drummers, right?
I mean, three
And
drummers sounds pretty crazy.
well, and the funny thing is, I found, you know, he told the inside story of that, and of course, it comes from who else? Robert Fripp, of all people, and you know, go figure, right? And his whole idea was that he wanted three drummers, and you know what he said to them? And this is the best. You know what his direction was, or his, you know, production notes were?
What's that?
Reinvent the sound of rock drumming.
Oh, do you know what? It's actually
And they did.
it's actually a good reference. You know, it's a good starting point. And if you, yeah, I mean, I like that. I like
No,
that.
I mean, me too. I thought, oh my god, this is so perfect, because
Yeah,
it's so typically
okay.
King Crimson, which are by far the, you know, the most underrated, overrated band of all time. You
I
know,
know a lot of them. I know a lot of them.
yeah, no, I know, and they just keep cropping up, and it's all these different, it's the different bands, but for me, it's also Robert Fripp, because I can hear one note of Robert Fripp and know that it's him playing.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same of hearing. One thing I've always had an ear for is kind of like a lot of these influences that we just mentioned. If
Yeah,
I hear a note of anyone, I kind of know it's them
yeah,
instantly. But there's also something, a giveaway in the dead, for me, is like that giveaway is in the production. You can just hear it.
yeah,
It's just
yeah, yeah.
instantly, and you
Well,
kind of, you know,
tone, right?
you
You know,
listen to these, you've
yeah,
listened to
a
these
great
records over and
musician.
over again.
Yeah, 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 and the
They
great,
become a part of you.
exactly, and the great guitarists, it's all in their tone.
Yeah, exactly,
They
exactly.
have this tone, and they carry it around, and it's just like, oh, it's him.
Yeah, it's
You
all
know?
about the tone for me too.
Yeah.
I kind of think, I think that's what the most important thing with the guitar sound. But yeah, you know, I have done a lot of work on, you know, on where we've got this record to, and kind of like the production side of things. So kind of when I was away,
Mhm.
you know, say I wasn't, it wasn't like I wasn't doing anything. I was still working,
Yeah.
and even in my not, you know, great state, and kind of like, you know, trying to still work through that, and realizing as well that kind of, you know, not ever going to really get back to making records without kind of, you know, sorting myself out. So kind of, you know, it was a good wake up call, but it took a bit of time. But
Mhm.
consistency is key, isn't it? You know, consistency is key. So
Yeah.
yeah, we got there in the end, and it's kind of all just been, you know, just flowing naturally, organically. It's just happening. Um, and I don't see this stopping now. I feel like, you know, with the plans we've got, the team I had to rebuild, coming back to music as well, because obviously with my manager passing away, we managed to secure all that in place. People who believe in this, people
Yeah.
who also knew about Holy Coves before, and kind of like where we were trying to take it, and it was a bit of a buzz building, and so trying to get that back, and, you know, which is, and people hitting new fans as well, because that's what it's about at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have a plan. We have a team. We have structure. You know, we have organization. We have discipline. So yeah, I think this is me until the day I die now.
Good. Well, that's absolutely fantastic. You know, and
And if I have
I
to take
wish
a
you
break,
all the. Listen. I wish you the unending amounts of luck, and hopefully there won't be another round of lockdowns or things to
yeah,
keep things
I
up,
know, no, because
especially when, you know, when you're likely to be playing live, and
this record would have
such
got
a
made
good
a lot
way of
sooner.
promoting things now that you have things that you can promote more than a, you know, like a Spotify stream.
You know, this record would have got made a lot sooner if, you know, the
Yeah.
lockdown hadn't happened. So, you know, there was that as well. That wasn't easy to take, and maybe if I wasn't in the best place of mind, that I would have took that personal. But you know,
Yeah.
because I know a lot of people who did. But no, it's I'm really looking forward to people to hear this record, and I'm really looking forward to the future as well, and kind of like what's to come. But yeah, Druids and Bards comes out October the 14th, and then it will be followed by, you know, the pre-order for the vinyl CDs, there'll be a t-shirt bundle, that kind of thing, and then yeah, it'll be although the end of last year I did release all my old back catalogue of Holy Coves, and you know, under a Wither Records, my DIY label, because I wanted it all in one place. And I won't even entertain. I will never entertain. I've been offered ridiculous deals over the years from labels. I've been offered major deals. Being offered, you know, ridiculous indie ones, and then I've been offered some stuff that I probably regret not even entertaining and you know, and talking to years ago, because some people as well who, you know, who were good, and I just kind of like, I just won't entertain. I will not compromise my art for anyone. I will not change my music. It's my way, you know, and how I want it to be. So it's kind of like a label's just not right for me. I had to start my own one.
Yeah. Well, and you're in the driver's seat now, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You can take advantage of the next deal that comes your way, but it's a distribution deal.
Yeah,
that's a whole different thing.
Exactly.
You deliver a finished product, and they distribute it.
Exactly that. So, you know, there is that. So, like, you know, and also I'm, you know, I have plans to establish this label that we've started, but you know, and it's a lot of work doing it yourself, but it's a lot more rewarding. And I feel like I'm way more in control. I feel like that now I get to make decisions that kind of like, you know, about the next decade, rather than just sort of like, you know, something quickly, you know, let's just get this out there, do this. And now I feel like I just know where I'm going, I know where I'm heading, and I at least know where I want to get to. And sometimes, you know, you can get lost with that. And yeah, I'm really excited for people to hear it. It's a really good record.
Good. And so the October 14th, that'll be when the whole thing drops then on streaming services.
It'll be on streaming
Apple
services,
Music, Spotify.
Everywhere. It'll be everywhere. We've got our Bandcamp as well, which you cannot order. You cannot actually pre-order.
Pre-order on Bandcamp, yeah.
Just through our Bandcamp now, the Holy Coves Bandcamp, which is just the digital version, obviously. But that's where we will be selling the vinyl and CDs as well. And like, you know, at the end of the day, we do need as many people to support this record as possible, because what I do need to stress as well, as much as I possibly can, I'm trying to explain to people that we're just doing this DIY, is, you know, we do need to sell the physical copies. We do need to sell as many downloads as we possibly can, and then it pays for the next record. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
And
definitely.
Sustainable. We can keep going. So it's kind of like, you know, however that goes, it's kind of, we sell these records, we make the next one. It's as simple as that.
No, good. And I noticed as well that you had some considerable support through the BBC4.
I think the BBC Radio Wales. I mean, we had all that in we had Radio Radio 6 Music. We had Radio BBC Radio Wales, and Radio 1 from the 2012 era. So it's just like when we came back for this one and we released the new singles, I wasn't sure how that's going to go, but everyone seems to back it again. And Adam and Hugh Stevens from the, you know, Radio Wales have got behind it. And you know, there's been. It's just nice to kind of like get that back when you're not sure whether, you know, people are gonna, you know, still kind of like your music. But I'm kind of like in the position when I'm thinking now is, I think they're mad if they don't like this new music, because the new music to me is 10 times better than anything I've ever done in the past. And so I you know, I kind of like, maybe when I was younger would get angry about certain things or certain people not getting certain things, but I realize now that you know, what I'm writing now is kind of like something completely different than I was doing before, and it's more mature. It's just for me, it's just better music. It's as simple as that. And I've got nothing. I love the records I did in the past. Each record I love when I've done it. But I think that where we're heading now is just into this new Holy Coves era.
Good. No, that's actually again, I'm happy that you've gotten yourself to that place.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I mean, it's not just about the BBC, obviously, because
Well, but listen,
so many people have been playing it on the
as an
radio.
indie player, getting any attention at
I
all.
mean, we've had it all. There's been I've been overwhelmed with the amount of radio. I would literally have to write a list, and we'd be here again for another podcast. It's like that many. I mean, and another one person worth a mention as well is Neil Craig from Loud and the War, because he kind of like really like helped me out with just liking this this version on the Scars EP, which ended up on this record, Grey, and kind of just gave me confidence again when I was maybe not in a good place. About 5 or 6 years ago, I think it was 6 years ago now, and kind of like that put me on a path to write this record. So he's the Welsh DJ, and he's on Loud and the War radio, and then every single internet radio. We got playlists on Amazing Radio, Radio X. I've just seen the other day, and there's all of them basically. It's just kind of like when you're making a record or when you're trying to come back and do these things, or whether you're starting out, it makes no difference. If you can tick those boxes, then it helps you out massively.
Yeah.
Helps you out with tuners, helps you out with selling records, helps you out with building the brand, because that's what they call it now. And I'm not a fan of that, the brand thing, but I do understand is that of marketing a lot, but not more. I've had to learn about these things, because at the end of the day, you can't expect to get anywhere without understanding the industry and how it works. So I'm a lot more experienced now, and I'm still learning every single day, and I'm hungry to learn, and I'm really enjoying it.
Good. So let's get back to musical influences. And you said you were very influenced, and I was interested by that Pink Floyd. Now, what Pink Floyd record would you say was the most influential to you?
Well, I'll be honest with you. When the Pink Floyd was a reference, it's not so much that they're a massive influence on me. What it was is the reason that I mentioned that is because I like Floyd. Yeah. I don't maybe love them as much as what I love some of the other bands I've mentioned. But the reason I said that is just because there's a couple of songs on this record that the only reference I could say that it sounds like, and I'm happy it does, is when John Lawrence plays some guitar on it. It just sounds like a Floyd record. It's just like it's epic. I think there's a song called what's he played on? He's played on the whole record, but where he comes onto this sort of like Floyd stuff, it's good example is the end song on the record, because I'm really into writing this sort of epic ending song on the end of every single record. I used to love that in the 90s. A lot of bands did that. I mean, a lot of bands have done it over all the years, but when I was sort of a teenager, you're getting into music, kind of like that's when it grabbed me. So I always remember epic ending songs that were kind of 9 minutes long, that type of thing. But yeah, there's a song called Taste the Wine, and it's just got Floyd written all over it. It's epically massive, and John Lawrence comes in with this guitar tone and this it sounds like David Gilmour. It's as simple as that. So that's where that comes from. That I couldn't really say that they were kind of like a they just influence me because they're just brilliant, and I like their music, all of their music. But yeah, that reference came from John Lawrence just epically sounding humongous on the record in this also rocky, subtle, spacey way. Yeah. And that's on a couple of the songs on the new record. And Another Day, it's got elements of that, but especially a song called the end song of this album is called Taste the Wine. So you have to listen to that to understand, and then you'll understand what I'm talking. The Floyd, it's got Eagles meets the Floyd. It's just with
that long sort of languid guitar, right? It's that slow hand.
With this 90s nostalgia, it's got it's got this sticky stuff when it kicks in. It's like this rock sound. It's just epic. It's everything what I had in my head of how I want it to sound and more.
No, it's great. It's like the epic sounding epic without necessarily reminding you of U2.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't got anything against any bands if I'm honest, because I'm not going to start slating bands, because at the end of the day is there are bands that I think are middle of the road. There's bands I think that are not so good, but. Yeah,
I think, and oftentimes it's the same band just at different points in their career.
Yeah, I mean, you
cannot.
The bands that I like, what I've mentioned, I could be here forever naming bands, musicians. I like music. I don't necessarily just like one genre of music. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a fan of Coldplay, so let's just leave it there.
Yeah, Coldplay. Yeah, I think
I'm just not a fan. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan. And I understand how these stadium rock bands get to, like, how they get to, and I'm just like, will we remember one song from? I mean, I can even remember a U2 song that they've had hits. They've had great songs.
yeah.
And they'll be remembered forever. But
Mhm.
when Chris Martin's gone, will we remember a Coldplay song? I don't think so.
I think, listen, it's funny. I feel the same way about a band that a lot of people. I'm much more of an '80s kid, right?
Okay, yeah.
Late '70s, not early '80s, and one band I could never understand, although I know a lot of musicians who absolutely they rave about them constantly. It's Erasure.
Yeah, I know who they are. I know their music.
And I know, and it all sounds the same.
Annie Lennox as well, is it? And is that who it is? Annie Lennox and
No, that was Eurythmics.
Oh, who did you say then?
Erasure.
Oh,
It was,
Erasure. Okay.
and I think they were also it was
Yeah,
sort of out of Ultravox. There was
Erasure.
Visage as well that I think was a lot of the same
I'm
players.
trying to think of one of their songs now. 80s Erasure. Okay, I know who you mean.
Yeah, and it sounded all like a B-side.
Okay, well, okay.
In my, in my estimate, well, it's like Coldplay. I agree completely with Coldplay.
I mean, I don't think they've written a good B-side, to be fair.
Yeah, well,
I think if I'm honest, is like with Coldplay, it's just the songs are just not any good. It's just as simple as that.
Well,
and it's kind of like
the road and non-threatening,
yeah, it doesn't even commit to being bad or good. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like it just bores me. But I've got nothing against them. I've got nothing against anyone. I'm not a fan of a lot of bands, but I'm a fan of lots of bands, lots of musicians, and it's kind of like I know as we could get into slating lots of bands and musicians and
no, not that many.
But I'd rather not.
I mean, for me, it definitely something like Coldplay, definitely something like what was that Canadian band, Nickelback.
Oh, I mean, I'm not a fan of Nickelback.
For me, I was a big sort of Peter Gabriel Genesis fan, and when he left the band, post Gabriel Genesis, I always hated
Genesis. Is that like Phil Collins?
No, there was another band before Phil Collins.
So he came in after. Was it after?
No, he was always in the band, but he was the drummer.
Drummer, yeah.
You remember Peter Gabriel?
Yeah.
Sledgehammer. That he used to be the singer of Genesis.
Okay. Well,
and they did all the early stuff with him when they were all at their prog height, right? And they had a great. You should look it up actually. Great, crazy stage shows. Peter Gabriel, at one point. And you'll love this one with the Druid influence. He had like a tonsure haircut.
Yeah.
Right? Because he had all these weird headgear that he'd wear and stuff. And it was like they were really almost the first sort of the big sort of stage show bands in the early 70s.
Prog rock.
But this was totally prog rock.
I'm a fan of prog rock. But the one you've just made me think of a band now because another influence. I'm sure it's 60s, okay, 60s, 70s. Is the band, this was another one because when I was in the studio when I was younger working with David Wrench, he put me onto all these amazing bands. He put me onto all these eras, and and kind of like if I said I like this music and it's from the 90s, he's like, well, I'll show you the roots of this and this and this, and it was a Japanese band called the Flower Traveling Band.
Okay.
And if you've never, and when you were just saying crazy and all this like sort of how you were describing them then, I mean, just listen. Imagine a Japanese Led Zeppelin, okay? Have you heard of the Flower Traveling Band?
No, I haven't.
Well, that's one for you to check out then, okay? It's the Flower Traveling Band, and anyone else wants to listen to an amazing band. And they have an album called Satori. It's like part 1, part 2. Just literally just get onto even your streaming, get onto YouTube, and just check out this band. Absolutely amazing band. Another influence of mine, and never on this record with using references from in production, but yeah, like a Japanese Led Zeppelin, but better.
Wow.
Much better.
Wow. Well, that's it. That's interesting.
Or
And
even like Black Sabbath, that type of thing as well. Better,
Mhm.
better. Just that type of music, kind of like the Sabbath thing as well is massive. That's who they sound like. Sabbath, like massively, but they're better.
No, it's that's quite a feat because those early Sabbath records were great.
Yeah, you got to listen to these
Yeah,
as
yeah,
well.
yeah.
You
No,
have
no,
to
it's
listen to the Flower Traveling Band, Japanese. What a band! What a record! But yeah, I mean,
yeah.
can
Can were something else as well.
Can add. I mean, still. I mean,
Yeah,
they still influence me daily, and I love turning people on to musicians who haven't heard these bands as well. So it's kind of like, even in the production, working with people. That's something that kind of like you can get a lot further by kind of just connecting to the if you know the bands. But
yeah,
I love when people it's half the battle if you kind of like know who Can is, and then I'm like well, this is a reference of the production, and but it's also great if you don't and you've never heard them, because you just discover as a drummer one of the or a bass player, guitarist, whatever, you discover one of the best bands that has ever lived.
yeah,
And so there's also that, and someone discovering that, realizing that, well, this has just changed my life. And I like that, because music does have the ability to do that. Bands, musicians, whatever, they have the ability to change people's lives, and that's an amazing thing.
yeah, yeah. Although I think culturally, I was so happy I grew up when I did. Which was sort of punk, post-punk, early new wave, where there was just
Yeah,
every week there was something new and crazy coming out.
yeah,
And I think it was about the same way when sort of Nevermind dropped
yeah, yeah,
and totally it was like a thermonuclear bomb on the music industry
yeah.
and changed everything.
Genre is the thing, isn't it? Genre is like genre for me is like
Yeah,
we could name these genres. There's so many more now, so many
yeah.
more tags and labels. I've never really been a fan of genre, but when I was younger, obviously didn't understand what genre was, and I didn't understand what this. But obviously, I
Well,
understand it
I don't think it
now.
existed in the same way though back in the day.
Yeah, yeah,
And everyone would resist the label,
yeah.
whereas now it seems everyone's sort of embracing a label.
Yeah, well, we kind
Uh,
of
you
we
know,
kind of get called different things, and like when we started, I've just only ever called us a rock band, because
yeah,
that's what I think of, because I kind of think rock falls into all these categories. There's times where we've been called psychedelic, indie, alternative, and we're
mhm,
kind of still called all those things to this day. But I'm kind of like, well, I think even prog, earlier stuff as well. I remember there was a song and then I had a bit of that on it. So it's kind of like I like I think rock falls under all those categories anyway. Space rock, no, there's so many things, and I'm kind of like, um, I just kind of I like all those genres of music anyway. So
yeah,
it's kind of like for me, blues, all that music is kind of like rock that falls under all those categories for me. So I'm kind of like, we're a rock band,
yeah.
and
Well, I
and
mean,
label it how you want.
rock comes from a lot of those things, right?
Yeah, I think so.
There's,
So I kind of like just say we're a rock band if anyone asks us. But with them, we're kind of like everyone's like at the moment. We're kind of at the moment our new target is indie psych rock band. So I'll take that. It kind of makes sense to me.
yeah,
I still think we're a bit more alternative as well. But if we're going to get into genres and all the thing like that, is then you could say we're a million different types of things. But yeah, I'd just say we're a rock band. Simple as that. But I'm still comfortable with the indie psych, whatever you want to call us, because at the end of the day, it's not me that gives the tags to the music. It's people who listen to it. So I'm happy with them to call us what they want.
yeah,
It's not going to affect me either way. It's not
yeah.
going to
Well,
change my opinion
if
of
it gets
what I like
someone
music.
interested in the music, then yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's not going to change just because you call me, say, psychedelic rock or psych rock, or if you call me indie, if you call me alternative. It's not, if just for that tag, it doesn't change how I write music. I still approach it in the same way.
Hmm. Yep. No, which is fair enough, and I think that like what I find as well is when you take something from a musical influence, the idea isn't to copy what they do, although you might want to copy to figure out how to do it, but
Yeah,
it's to imbue that perspective to your music,
yeah,
that approach to the music,
yeah,
which is why like I love something like Robert Fripp saying to three drummers, redefine rock
Yeah,
drama.
that's
I
cool.
mean, that for me, that's
Cool.
the proper use of an influence, right?
That's cool. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I also remember when Pumpkins made a door. They didn't have a drummer, so they used a drum machine. I
Yeah.
mean, like it's about finding a way, isn't it? It's kind of like Jimmy Chamberlain had some drugs problems. I think it was heroin. Like serious problems on one of the tours, didn't he? And he was obviously you're pretty sick in that case, so you can't really be committed to stuff like that. So it wasn't such as I'm guessing they all fell out from what I read years ago, and that well, for them to fall out. It doesn't mean that it's over, but you still have to. You can't stop making music. So I like the idea that they carried on, and I like the idea that the door was kind of like this drum machine kind of thing, and also that they didn't just replace him and kind of like think that this guy's nothing to the band because Jimmy Chamberlain, he's one of he is the Pumpkins with Billy Corgan, isn't he? It's as simple as that. Without his beats, then you aren't the Smashing Pumpkins. It's as simple as that. He's a drummer of who are few and far between.
Yeah, but that was a big commitment on their part to do it that way.
Yeah.
Risk having a terrible failure because how many bands have tried that and failed, right?
Yeah. And it was a success as well. It's a fantastic record. It's one of the best for me.
Yeah.
And then he comes back and he plays them all live, so they're still like his songs, and it's like he's never been away. And I like that. I like that. I like that I'm old enough now that I can see the story from when it was good to not so good to great again. And then everyone seems to be carrying on, and I like that. Another massive influence I have to mention, if one of my favourite bands, biggest influence on this record also is an English band called Doves. Yeah, I mean, what a band! I mean, every single one of their albums, they're one of those bands that don't release a bad record, and they won't release a record that just for the sake of releasing a record. They will take whatever time out they need, and I'm the same. If I have to take a break, I'm comfortable with that. I will release music and make music as I got it, and I think as well as like there is a lot of this. I want to keep the momentum going, obviously, because I have music to be pushing, and I know I have the next record, and I'm kind of like already thinking about the next record after that, and that's where I'm up to now. So, but I understand that thing of like I like that they went away, and 10 years they didn't make a record. They just came back a couple of years ago, #1 album, and it was one of the best albums I've heard, and it's still it still sounds amazing now. And it's always the test of time for albums as well. As you make a record, is you pretty much know a year, 2, 3. The longer you're out of it, kind of the longer you can listen to that record, the more you know what you've got. Yeah. And Doves. I mean, and it was really sad to see as well. Is like Jimmy Goodwin, the singer, bass player. They had a tour, and he was in a bit of a dark place himself, so they just had to cancel that because of. And I had a ticket for it as well. I speak to him on Twitter as well. He's that band is easily my biggest influence from that era. I mean, and still influencing me to this day. And I really hope that they get back out and tour that record because they deserve to be able to do that. So just come back and have after that amount of time out, and then get a #1 album and kind of like because it's a fantastic record, and then. Due to mental health and stuff and how the world is, and it has been for people these days, is had to cancel that. And, they must have been so hungry to get back out there. And I really hope that they get to do that tour and I get to watch them live and maybe get to support them with Holy Coves.
Oh, that would be a dream come true. A dream come true for you.
It would be. I would be honored to support.
No, it's unfortunate that so many great musicians fall victim to addictions. And I wonder how much of that has to do with just trying to chase after that euphoria of playing live.
Mine was always like was never when I was on the road, never when I was touring, because I've done that party scene when I was younger, and there was always about being professional, when we're out there, and the best show possible, and that could be for the people who have bought tickets to watch us, because that's what it's about for me. It's so important that they have the best experience, and so we're like, no, alcohol, drugs, not allowed at any of that when you're on tour. But my thing was I would come home and I'd be bored. and I would kind of like just be in this thing of not, used to being on the road, and also that time where we'd be having some time off, where so we're not necessarily writing, and we're not moving forward, and where I should have been, getting back into writing. I should have been, I realize that now. It's like, we didn't need to stop. It was me. It wasn't anyone else. But so I'd come home, and and also maybe running away from things, didn't want to be at home, and so kind of like wanting to be out on the road. And so there's also that high, that coming home from a high and then getting high. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, well, because I don't think, unless you've been in a band it can be in front of 200 people. It's not no different than being in front of 200,000 people in a sense. But
is there something just gone wrong with your microphone? Because it's just gone all a bit like
is it better now, or
it's just sounding like a bit kind of like robotic and
okay. That might be. It also just might be the actual stream that's causing the problem.
Because you really, I can't hardly hear you. I mean, you might still be recording normal, but just so you know, it's not too great.
Okay, well, thanks for that, and apologies if that's the case for everyone when this comes out. Well, in that case, on that very low note, why don't I just ask you the last question, which I asked you at the beginning? What was the first thing that you ended up purchasing with your own money when you were a kid?
Right, and this is quite embarrassing, but like I said earlier, a hit is a hit.
That's the idea.
And this has no reflection on the music that I'm into, or nothing to do with like the genres of music that I'm into today. Just I was a kid. And I was out with my auntie, and we were in the old Woolworths, if you remember the old Woolworths. And so the first music I actually purchased was a song called "All That She Wants," and it's "All That She Wants Is Another Baby." That song by Ace of Base. Yeah. And it was like, I remember just being a kid, and that hook just got into me, and kind of like and. It's not like I would say I'm a fan. It's just I was a kid, and we were in Woolworths, and that was the song that I'd heard on the radio, and I ended up buying it. My auntie gave me some money to buy the song, and I bought it, and I loved it, and it was a hit. So yeah, a hit is a hit.
I think that song, if I'm not mistaken, probably made up 10% of the Netherlands GDP that year.
It was
a big hit, but because it's very catchy, very catchy, earworm supreme, that one.
Exactly. And I was a kid. It wasn't like I was a teenager. I was a kid.
No, but you know what? I think that's an excellent sign of your musical taste, because you immediately went to the pop hook, right?
Well, it is what it is. So I'm not going to make any excuses. I'm not going to say anything bad. I'm going to say I'm just being honest. So you asked me the question, and when you asked me to think about that earlier, I was kind of like, oh my God.
No one's come up with the answer. The first thing I bought was a John Coltrane record. Right? So it's not shocking. Mine is even worse than yours.
Well, I've given you the first. I'm not giving you the second.
No. Well, my first one was "Love Will Keep Us Apart" by Captain and Tennille, but also another hooky song, right?
Well, your microphone's just started working again now. So if there is anything with the recording,
well, you were saying all the interesting stuff anyway.
It was only brief anyway, so don't worry about it.
Anyway, Scott, thank you so much.
It's a pleasure.
It's an absolute pleasure. Good luck. The record drops, and it is. Let me get it right. It's Druids and Bards. Is that correct?
It's Druids and Bards. Yeah.
Yes. By the Holy Coves, October.
Holy Coves. There's no the or the in Holy Coves. It's just Holy Coves.
Holy Coves. Excellent.
That's the one.
Holy Coves.
Thank you very much.
14th. Great pleasure. Stay online, and we'll say our goodbyes. Thanks to everyone. Enjoy. Please like, subscribe, do all the fun stuff, and I'll see you soon.